Hi, everybody. Douglas Wade here for this week's Closet Chat. So, I was off last week, and I'm hoping that the video I put out of the unboxing of Lost Treasure was beneficial. Um, I will be putting out a couple more of those relatively soon for off weeks, because I do have some things in the works where I won't be able to sit down and have a one on one chat with everybody. But this week, I wanted to talk about fantasy gaming a little bit. Fantasy gaming is kind of a broad, wide open topic. Covers a lot of different things. It covers from like board games, kind of like zombies. It goes into miniatures, kind of like the WizKids Cave Troll I've got here. It goes into Dungeons and Dragons. It goes into a lot of tabletop RPG games. It has a wide range of topics. Um, I think fantasy games are a better genre in my opinion because you can do a lot more with them. You're not really constrained under some of the rules like you are on some of the other games, kind of like some of the Avalon Hill war games. And then because you have a set rule structure, you have weather conditions, you have military battles, fighting each other. But in with fantasy games, just about anything can happen. You can have random units, you can have weird spell effects, you can have just about anything that your imagination brings. So it takes it out of that grounded reality and puts you into an entirely new world of open possibilities, which I think is beneficial for most games. But before we get into that, I did want to go over the newest addition to the closet this week, which is a game I just picked up, which is Agatha Christie's Death on the Cards. It is a card game. As you can see, I haven't opened it yet. I'm looking forward to cracking this thing open this week sometime. But it is a card game where you have to figure out who the murderer of a crime is. It could be you, it could be someone else. You could escape, who knows? But it goes into the entire Agatha Christie universe with Hercule Poirot, Miss Marple, all the other characters. So I think it's a interesting concept, and I'm looking forward to giving this a try. But this is the newest game I've added to the closet this week, and you can pick it up. I think it's still on sale at Barnes and Noble, Target, things like that. But I would say it's probably going to go on clearance at some point soon. So if you want to give this one a try, I'd take a look at it. So, but let's go back into the topic of fantasy gaming. Fantasy gaming, like I said, it's very wide and open. It covers a lot of different things. I'll give you a couple examples that I have here of different forms of fantasy gaming. Like I did point out, zombies. Zombies is a game that I always have a great time with at conventions. I try to run as many expansions as possible, and I take over a table, if not a couple of tables, which always brings a crowd of people trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing, because 500 pieces on the table, tiles, just about everything you can think of, and it gets interesting, especially with the complexity this game can have and the amount of players you can have. Just keep adding players. Some of the additional expansions allow you to have additional players, so then you can have 7, 8 player games, and you can go in for a good couple of hours, which are always a good time. So I'm always a big fan of zombies. It's a horror fantasy game because you're trying to escape an apocalyptic town that's overrun with zombies, and if you're playing with the military expansion, then you have government enhanced super zombies, zombie dogs. You can go through sewers. You can go through the Dawn of the Dead Mall. What else is there? You can fight zombie clowns, zombie zoo animals. It keeps going. But like I said, I've always had a good time with zombies, and it's a good fantasy based game. Another fantasy based game, which is very high on my list, which I always enjoy playing, are the Cthulhu games like Mansions of Madness. Mansions of Madness is a combined story of players versus the Cthulhu mythos. So if you don't know who Cthulhu is, he was created by H.P. Lovecraft. I want to say in the 20s. Um, H.P. Lovecraft came out of the First World War with kind of a darker looking outlook on a lot of things. There's the Call of Cthulhu, which is a book printed by, again, H.P. Lovecraft. It's still in print today. It's deals with a lot of insanity, morality, mythical old god monsters. So it deals with a whole bunch of things. I'm always a fan of the Call of Cthulhu genre. I mean, they have a lot of material they put out over the years. There's tabletop RPGs like Call of Cthulhu. They have Mansions of Madness, which this is at a first edition. They have a second edition, which is in print now. You can get a hold of Elder Sign, Cards of Cthulhu. Flux has a version of Cthulhu. There's a lot of different Cthulhu type games. So, again, it falls into the horror kind of genre with fantasy, but I think it gives you a lot to play through. It's a genre that I think is still not yet overtapped. They're still putting out products every so often, which I think are always a good time. Um, See that, or you can also with fantasy gaming, you can get into some of the older stuff. I'm a personal fan of Avalon Hill, which I enjoy Wizard's Quest. Wizard's Quest is a game where you have to actually go through and collect treasures on a continent. There's a dragon that flies around barbecuing territories. You have to deal with orc armies that rise up. You're dealing with political structures of other kingdoms trying to again get treasures as well. You have to take over castles. Um, I pull this game out on conventions and people look at me like I'm crazy because this game doesn't show up in play very often. Again, it's Old Avalon Hill, which I think Old Avalon Hill games I think are a little more superior than to some of the today stuff. Unfortunately, Avalon Hill got bought out by Hasbro, and Hasbro just won't reprint a lot of their catalog, which is sad. So you have to go and try to find some of the older copies still floating around. Some of them are really good. I think there's 3 editions of Wizard's Quest that came out, but I always enjoy Wizard's Quest. Um, I was at a convention with a friend of mine named George, and we were playing this particular game. I think it ended up being like 3 hours, just playing Wizard's Quest, going back and forth, just trying to push each other out of castles, trying to get treasure, and then dodge the dragon flying around, barbecuing armies of people. So it can get entertaining. If you're playing Wizard's Quest or something like this, I would recommend more than 2 people. 2 people kind of draw the game out for a much longer period of time than you really want to. But it's a game that I've always appreciated. Like I said, it's the old Avalon Hill, so they have those little teeny cardboard tiles you have to deal with, so they're really easy to get lost. But if you take your time playing something like this, I think you'll have a really good time with it. Um, some of the other things, like I do mention, I did mention like tabletop wargaming with like Whiz Kids, things of that nature, which kind of go hand in hand with some of the other stuff, which is, for example, the Legend of the Five Rings tabletop RPG game, which kind of is like D&D but with a Japanese dynamic to it. If you haven't played L5R, they have several editions of tabletop RPG games. There's a card game. There's several board games. Again, it's another genre specific area that I think that they do a lot of. They put out a lot of good products in. Same thing with like Cthulhu base L5R. I've seen people actually take this material and turn them into live action role playing games at conventions, which are really weird. When you have an army of samurai warriors showing up at your convention in full regalia, it gets interesting. Um, but then you have games in the fantasy genre, which I think are good in spirit, but are really badly presented. A good example of this, which I think the material on this, don't be wrong, the game I'm about to show you, the material on this game, like the background material, is great if you can apply it towards another game. But this particular game is horrifically bad, which is Leading Edge Games Aliens the Adventure Game. The background material on this is really good for other games. Like if you want to, because they have gestation rates for aliens, they have different types of uh, building structures, vehicles, things of that nature. If you want to take this and put it into another game, um, like how I play, like Hunter the Vigil from White Wolf or something like that, you'll have a really good time with it. This game has damage charts that go over across 5 charts, so you have to see if you actually can shoot somebody. If you do shoot at somebody, if it travels the correct distance, the next chart if it actually hits them, and then you have to calculate the damage, which could be in the decimal points into the tens of millions. So there's way too many charts for this game. There's way too many um, mechanics for this game. It's a horrible game. But that being said, the background material is phenomenally great. So some of these fantasy games, you can apply them towards other things. I mean, you could take something out of this, throw it into Dungeons and Dragons, and have a good time. The original Dungeons and Dragon rules were kind of a loose foundation where they allow you to build homebrew games, which I think homebrew games are far superior to some of the other stuff they put out. Some of the newer edition stuff, they're not really nice on the homebrew editions, but there's a lot of give and take there. D&D, I've mentioned several times. They've done a lot for the fantasy gaming world. Um, they get a bad rap, depending on what circles you're in. I know in the 80s and 90s there was the satanic panic where people were concerned that people were playing these Dungeons and Dragon characters and then going in real life and playing them. There's a really interesting um, movie called Monsters and Mazes, I think it's called, that has Tom Hanks in it back in the late 80s, where it kind of dwells along those lines into the satanic panic, where people thought that playing Dungeons and Dragons was a gateway to evil and satanic forces and things of that nature. Um, but it's reality. It's just a game where you can get together, have fun with friends, and let your imagination go wild. That's it. Um, Dungeons and Dragons has spawned a lot of games over the years. A good example of that is a game that I enjoy, which is called Shadow Lord. Shadow Lord was produced by Parker Brothers in the late 80s and is a board game that is Dungeons and Dragons in space. It has that feel to it. But like I said, I think fantasy gaming has done a lot for the game world. And I don't think it gets the credit it's due. It's impacted board games, it's impacted tabletop role playing games. Um, there's an entire subsection of fantasy miniatures, which like BattleTech, you can create, like, again, Whiz Kids figures and stuff like that. So you actually can get into better tabletop gaming. Dust, that I played here about a month ago, is a example of that, where it deals with a what if scenario where forces get alien technology, and then World War II continues on into the late 40s. I think fantasy gaming is a subset that gets overlooked a lot. Um, a good example of that, I was looking online. I look at different conventions, things of that nature that I just can't go to. I don't have the financial funding to. And one that happened recently, which I'm glad to see it back, is HistoryCon. If you haven't seen HistoryCon before, I would go check it out. It's in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and It just ran this last weekend, where they do a lot of tabletop role playing games in multiple different millimeter sizes. You can do Civil War battles. I think they had a battle where, um, like the Siege of Paris. They have um, samurai battles, things of that nature. So a lot of them have historical aspects to them. But the one that blew me away was there were a couple of gentlemen that had a um, Have Gun Will Travel game. So if you don't know, Have Gun Will Travel was a 1950s TV show with Richard Boone. It's about you wire Paladin. He shows up and solves your problem. So there's little business cards and everything. And I think, hey Doug, my friend Anthony says hi. Hey Anthony. So Have Gun Will Travel. They made a board game like most TV shows. Like I said in the last live stream I did, most TV shows have a board game, and they made a Have Gun Will Travel board game where you have to go and hunt down um, outlaws and bring them back to jail. But these these two guys took it to the next level. So you play the Have Gun Will Travel board game, but then when you go to the locations in the board game, you actually go to a tabletop situation where you can go through a town and you have to go hunt down outlaws, you have to go deal with sheriffs. So it goes into like this D&D format where you actually have to start dealing with characters. You can end up at a military fort, you can end up at a lost mine where you can go delve into the mines. um, I'm going to put a link here in the description, so that way you can see what I'm talking about. But I think taking board gaming and tabletop gaming and merging them together is that next level gaming that I think a lot of people miss. There's a lot of background material in board gaming that, especially some of the older stuff that people have forgotten about, that I think can get readapted over to fantasy tabletop gaming, which will take it to that next level. Um, like I said, Shadow Lord is a good example of that. Some of the science fiction games that came out of the 50s and 60s, like Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, or um, something along those lines, I think could get adapted over into a tabletop game that would amplify not just the game, but amplifies the entire player experience. Um, so, like I said, it just completely blew me away from the amount of detail that they put in. I mean, you had figures going through mines. There were Indian camps, forts, towns, um, and you have to deal with the entire situation. But you're still following back to the original board game rules of what the outcome is. So you're still dealing with cards from the 1960s board game. You're still dealing with die rolls, but then you amplify everything into this entire new world, which you can do anything with. And I think fantasy gaming, honestly, is that next level that you can go to. If you put enough imagination into any one of those older board games, you can have something that will just be phenomenal and blow people away. Yeah, I agree, Craig. Like I said, it is cool, and I haven't I haven't been blown away like that looking at a board game in a long time. I've seen crazy board games. I mean, I have people put together the battles for Naboo with the uh, all of the walkers and everything from the Phantom Menace, Star Wars. You know, with the droid army and the Gungans. People actually did tabletops. I've seen battles of Hoth on tabletops. Going back to the classic stuff, I've seen the Battle of Waterloo, which was on like 15, 20 tables in length, everything painted, which I just don't have the time or funding to do some of that stuff. I would love to, but I don't have the time and funding. But seeing some of this stuff that's out there, I think gives you a lot of um, gives you a lot to absorb, so that way you can then just expand to that next level of gaming. So Like I said, I'm going to put a link for HistoryCon, the overview, um, in the when I release this, so that way you can see what I mean. And I really, really hope you check it out. Um, the last one, that was a HistoryCon 2022, which, like I said, just ended this last weekend. Um, so, like I said, I think it's a area that is not yet um, not yet explored well enough, and I think it's something that will take to that next level. There are videos I've seen also online of a gentleman that has been running the same D&D campaign for the last 40 years, and he has specific people that show up to his game, um, which I think is another phenomenal thing. You know, if you can actually have a gaming campaign that'll last 40 years, and you keep it fresh and interesting, I think that's something worthwhile and worth checking out. I'm going to put a link to that in the description as well, which I don't normally do um, reaction videos or stuff like that, but there's a couple of things that I think are worth sharing, especially if you're interested in that. And I just want to make sure that anyone that does watch what I'm doing, who may have missed it, has the opportunity to at least see it. Um, Something I am planning on doing at some point soon. There are a couple of conventions that are coming. There's Pacificon, which I believe is in September here in California, and I'm also looking at going to GobbleCon, which has the weirdest name in the world. But GobbleCon is a convention, if you haven't put it together, is right around Thanksgiving. GobbleCon is something that I'm willing to try out, and then I'm looking forward to going to DundraCon again, which is President's Day weekend in Santa Clara, California. If you haven't gone to DundraCon before, it started off in the 70s as a Dungeons and Dragons convention, but it's not just a Dungeons and Dragons convention anymore. I've gone since 2004. I missed last year because of all the extra crazy pandemic rules, and I didn't really want to step into that. So I took basically a year off, but I am going back to DundraCon this next year, and I hope to be doing some live streaming from DundraCon again, President's Day weekend this next year, and to see again what gems people are playing or interesting things that are going on. So DundraCon is something that's in the works, and there are a few other gaming conventions I'm looking at trying out and going to. I am going to be releasing some videos sometime soon. People have asked me, how do I pick up games off of eBay? So I'm going to put a video out on what I look for in a board game, especially looking at eBay. Sometimes pricing and things like that can get a little wonky, but I'll take a look and show you exactly what um, generally what I look for. I've gotten some nice things off eBay. A really good example of that is I picked up Milton Bradley's Broadside and Boarding Parties, a very underprinted game. Normally it goes on eBay for a couple of $100. I picked it up for about 40 because you can find some really decent deals on there if you know how to look for them. So I am going to go over that. Something else, something asked me about. I have picked up games from thrift stores, so I will be going over at least a basic idea of what I look for in thrift stores. I'm not going to go through some of the other channels where I show you exactly, hey, I'm at a thrift store this week, I bought this and this and this and this. I don't need to do that. There's enough other channels out there that do that same thing, and it's kind of not the point of what I do. But I am going to put at least what I look for into a video, so then you can kind of get on the same page where I'm at and see what we deal with. There is, let's see here. There is a couple other things I do have coming. The month of September, I will be dropping out videos that are all requests. People have requested videos from me for a long time on specific games. Like a couple of good examples are Survive, Uno. Uh, I've had requests on Risk for the longest. I've had requests on Mancala for the longest. So I am going to be dropping out request games for the month of September. So please keep an eye out on that. I do listen to comments. I do read them. I do take a look and see what people are requesting from me. And sometimes I don't have those games, but I want to make sure that at least I can get my hands on them so I can do that. I do have a couple of other projects that are in the works along those lines, which I will get into at a later point. But especially when they solidify a little bit more. But I do have some projects that are in the works on new videos that are coming soon. I am working on some more live playthroughs. Hopefully, I can get some time set up with some friends of mine so we can actually sit down and do some more live playthroughs for them in the month of August. I am looking forward to doing that, and I still am looking forward to unleashing my heavy or my mortar team and my Tesla anti-infantry guns on my buddy Steven for Dust. So there is another game of Dust coming, and I am planning on that, which I am really looking forward to inflicting heavy casualties on his meteor forces. I'm not sure who's going to play, but the Sino-Soviet Union is going to do some damage. So we'll see how that plays out. Like I said, I do have some things coming. Halloween is around the corner, which I am going to be releasing the entire series of Halloween horror themed games. I have mentioned a couple of the games that I hear that I am already doing. If you haven't seen already, I am looking forward to dropping out another Zombies expansion again. And I do have some requests for a couple of Halloween themed games, which will bleed over into October. So some of the requests that I have had will go into October. So I don't see any other questions on the books. Like I said, if there's anybody that ever wants to me to answer questions, please put them in the comments. I'm always happy to answer questions when and wherever I can. Some things I will take a little time to get back to you, especially if you're asking me specific rules questions, because I'll have to go dig the game out and then reread through some of them, because some of the videos that I put out were several years ago, so I haven't read the rules in a couple of years. But I will get back to that definitely. There are a few of those that I'm still researching, so if I haven't answered your question yet, please no fear, I will answer it at some point. If there's questions that you want me to answer in these type of videos, just put the questions on the live streams, and I will answer them as soon as I see them. And most of the time, I'll answer them here live. So I'm always glad to do that. And like I said, I do have some fun projects coming in the works. So it doesn't look like I have any other questions. So it's coming up almost on the 30-minute mark. So unless anybody has anything for me at the moment, we'll pretty much call the live stream this month and this weekend. I look forward to bringing you something else really cool in the future. Nothing else? Alrighty. Whoever gave me the thumbs up, thanks. Craig, I'm glad you enjoyed the show. I don't say this enough, but your subscription does mean a lot to me, and I do appreciate you coming on to the live streams. So if you are in the live stream and you haven't subscribed yet, I do encourage you to subscribe, as I do put out content as soon as I can. My everyday work schedule sometimes gets in the way of that, but I do try to release things along those nature. So, but I'm always appreciative of all my subscribers. I encourage you to subscribe. And as always, everybody, have a great gaming day.